everything seemed so hard. Maybe it didn't show up in the standings. I would like some of that to go away. I would like it to stop feeling so hard. Everything they did felt so difficult because they were at a deficit from the beginning. They were shorter or slower or older or whatever.
The hard part is, how do you go about doing that?
It's the most craziest offseason ever. Are the Warriors going to be a part of that? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because while I think most of our fan base is running around screaming about Giannis right now, I don't really know what kind of maneuverability the Warriors actually have. It's not like they can go out there and sign big free agents. I don't even know how many are available. It's not like they can easily enter into Kevin Durant or Giannis trade scenarios. I'm much more leaning in the direction of, I think that this offseason is going to be the Warriors need somebody who's tall. They would like somebody else who can shoot the three consistently and defend. And that may well, one or both of those things may well come from a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade if they can find one. And that's about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Most likely.
They'll probably re-offer their mid-level exception to DeAnthony Melton again and something like that. And that's, I don't know how satisfying that'll feel to people, but that's kind of what I'm anticipating.
Unless you go, full on crazy mode and you shop Jimmy Butler and you trade Jimmy Butler for a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I don't think that would be a trade that Milwaukee would be interested in. But if you wanted to do something huge like that, the Warriors could engage in that. Personally, if I look at it through Mike Dunleavy's eyes and Joe Lacob and Steve Kerr, I look at a team that got Jimmy Butler, and it worked with Jimmy Butler really, really well until Steph got hurt. So I wouldn't necessarily be trying to break that part of it up. So I do think the most likely move would be a Kuminga sign and trade, and you bring in somebody like Cam Johnson. It's a name you and Grandy spent a whole day doing a show on. I was off that day, and he's still attractive, and he's makes in the low 20s, and he's the kind of lengthy, solid defender who can shoot the three type of a player. He would be your number 2 scorer on nights. He could be. And if he's your number 3 scorer, then you're probably loving it. I also think, and I mentioned Nikola Vucevic earlier, that to me is the kind of a player that, he's only making $21 million, and he is an older player, and you love older players here in Golden State. And
how are you getting them? Because that's a trade. That's not a free agent.
It would be a sign and trade type of deal. And if it's Kuminga, maybe you could get Vucevic and another player. Because ultimately, I look at the Warriors going into next year, and you need probably 3 rotation players. If Kuminga leaves, I think your rotation needs to have 3 people in there.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that whoever this tall person is that the Warriors get, I'd like him to be good on defense. I'd really, really like him to be good on defense. I would rather have Steven Adams than Vucevic, and I don't even know exactly how Adams fits offensively with what the Warriors do, but he's so good on defense, or at least has that presence of rim protection. Vucevic just doesn't have that. I don't think that that's the right player anymore. He is, as I put it to you when we talked about this earlier, I think Vucevic is just a really veteran, refined version of Quentin Post. And you all know what that looks like. Some nights he's hitting threes, sometimes he's not. And on defense, whoops, there goes the other guy. That's what it looks like. He's better.
He's much better, yeah.
Right, because he's older and he's been doing it for a long time. But he's not good. Not good on defense. He can score.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, your defense, even with what you had this year, was number 1 in the league since they got Jimmy Butler. So if you had Vucevic in there, then I don't think that your defense suddenly becomes bad, and it would keep Draymond Green from having to play the 5 a lot.
Well, that's the whole thing. You're right. They're a good defensive team already, but Draymond Green cannot be not even your most of the time center next year, I think. I don't think if we're going to dive into the analytics of what keeps guys healthy, that'd be my answer for Draymond Green. Not playing center all the time would be how you keep Draymond Green healthy and fresh and ready to play good basketball in the playoffs. There were so many games in the playoffs where people didn't like the way Draymond was playing, and I wonder where that conversation fits into all of this. He wasn't hurt, so he was out there, but I think when you watched him guard Julius Randle, did he look tired to you? Because he looked tired to me. He looked worn down. So he wasn't hurt, so you can't use that, but it's like you don't just need to be healthy, you also need to be fresh,
yeah,
on some level.
Well, and you also, if you look at the Western Conference, you need somebody, like you were saying, who is tall and able to guard centers, because Draymond Green, great defender, elite defender, but he's 6'5". And so you're asking him to check Julius Randle, who is 6'9", 250. And if you look around the rest of the West, you've got a lot of those guys, like Şengün at 6'11" is a tough cover, and Damas Sabonis at 7 feet in Sacramento. So you need to have a big guy who can go in there and defend some of these other big guys, because every team, Anthony Davis is still in the West, last I checked. And, you've got guys who we've kind of forgotten about because they didn't make the playoffs, so they're not around.
Zubats!
Exactly. Zubats is a problem. He's a problem. You got no answer for Zubats. So all these teams, they've got a 6'10", 6'11" guy now, it seems, who can go out there and fill it up.
I wonder if other Warrior fans feel this way. I'm going to share something. Shout out to my lovely Christy. This was always her reaction when we would sit and watch Warrior games together. And that's all we did. We turned every Warrior playoff game basically into date night. We're like, let's go there, let's find a new place to watch a game. Okay, so we're watching all the games. And she doesn't watch them the way a lot of us do, because we're like knee-deep, long-time Warriors fans. And we're watching the intricacies of the game. And she's just there to like, let's have some fun. Maybe they'll win. Let's have some beverages, But this would be her reaction. The only time we actually went to the game was Game 6 against the damn Rockets.
Yep.
Stupid loss. But she'd say this all the time. You're watching the game, and the Warriors, after Jimmy Butler, play like the 2 seed. They're really good. They're a good team. Their metrics are good. But when you watch the game, does it feel like they're good? Or do they just win the game? Here's what I mean by that. She would constantly just umbrella view the game, and she would go, oh my God, the other team is so much better than us. They're so much more athletic. They're so much bigger. There's so much this. There's so much. It was constant, to the point where there were moments where I would get kind of annoyed. I'd be like, we win most of the games.
That's right.
Like I'd like be over here defending the Warriors. But she's not coming at a place of like, fire the coach. She's just like, just look at the Rockets. They're flying all over the place. And we're like, wait for us. We're trying to catch up, and we're all small, and just everything seemed so hard. And that's what even though maybe it didn't show up in the standings, I would like some of that to go away for Warrior basketball. I would like it to stop feeling so hard. Everything they did felt so difficult because they were at a deficit from the beginning. They were shorter or slower or older or whatever. It's actually kind of a miracle they would win as many games as they did.
Yeah, and that's a great way to summarize it, but the hard part is, how do you go about doing that? Because if you look at what they already have on the books for next year, it's $170 million that you're going to be paying out, and that's not including Kavan or a Kuminga extension or GP2. All those guys who were, rotational for the most part this year, so you're going to need to replace them, and you don't have a lot of flexibility. So if you keep Kuminga, he's a young player who you would hope can go out there and play 75 games and eat up a lot of minutes. For me, the difficult part is twofold. One, you have an old team, and so yes, you'd love to make it easier on them by not having Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond play a bunch of basketball. But the other piece of it is, you're not good enough to go out and win without having Steph and Jimmy and Draymond play a lot of basketball. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of stuck. You don't have a draft pick in the first round. You don't have a lot of financial room. And you've got a young player who you could extend with his bird rights, but you may not want to give Jonathan Kuminga $30 million a year over 4 years.
No, you probably don't, and I don't know that you're going to have to. Literally, like, the first question for the Warriors this offseason can't even be answered in their own hallways. The first question for the Warriors this offseason is actually calling Brooklyn to find out what they think of Jonathan Kuminga. That's the first domino.
You probably already know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they tip their hand. But we need to know what Brooklyn thinks of Jonathan Kuminga. That's where everything starts. Because if Brooklyn is super in to Jonathan Kuminga, that's a little dangerous, but also intriguing. But if Brooklyn is not in on Jonathan Kuminga, then the Warriors have every single drop of leverage in the conversation, because Jonathan essentially will have no expensive suitors if Brooklyn is not interested. And I have no clue. Everyone brings them up, but no one has ever, has anybody who reports on that team been like, and by the way, they really like him? All I hear is, well, they're the only ones who could do it.
Right.
I have no idea if they want to. And so that's a next month answer, but that's, to me, that's the first piece of information that sets the course for the whole offseason.
Right, and the other piece is then if Brooklyn is not willing to give him 30, 35, whatever that number is, million per year, well, then the Warriors have a couple of choices. They can, wait for the market to decide how other teams feel about Kuminga, and if they want to keep Kuminga and no other team is willing to give him more than $20 million a year, you could sign him for a much smaller number than Kuminga would want, and you can keep him. Or you find out there's a couple teams out there who really like him, so then you can sign him for a bigger number and trade him to those teams and get some of their money and their players back.
You know why I'm smiling? Is what we really still don't know? We don't know. I don't know if the Warriors' first choice is for him to be on the team or not. I don't know.